one couldn't tell from one's snazzy headwear or one's hashtag Team Santa boob situation. This is my Christmas gift guide. As with all of my videos, apparently, this is going to be in two parts. In the first part, I'm going to tell you all about thrillers, mysteries, and some horror books that you can get for all of your death-loving loved ones for this Christmas. And part two is going to have a little smattering of literally everything else, including what to get for the book lovers in your lives that aren't books, because let's face it, it's quite difficult to buy book lovers books. I mean, this may be a long video, so let's get started. Category 1, thrillers. Because let's be honest, that's why you guys come to my channel, for the death and the mayhem and the books that make you sweat. First up are my two top thriller picks for the year. Yes, I am spoiling my top 10 books of the year list for you guys because you already knew about them, because I've talked about them a lot, extensively in fact. So for your more broad-minded loved one who likes a little bit of gore with their thriller and doesn't mind a few lots of little swear words in their fiction, I recommend to you Sweetpea by CJ Scouse. This is about Rhiannon. Rhiannon is a perfectly normal girl next door with a little chihuahua and a builder boyfriend who is very boring and a fairly normal life, except Rhiannon is a serial killer. She has been for a long time, and she would like to be the most prolific serial killer ever reported. So if you have a loved one who has a quirky sense of humour, this is definitely for them. My second pick, however, will appeal much more broadly to all of the thriller lovers out there. It's kind of a murder investigation, it's kind of a procedural, it's kind of a child narrator, kind of a story about families. Got the missing child thing for those of you who are not bored of that now in thrillers. This is, of course, Dead Girls by Abigail Tartellin. This one is about Thea and Billy. They are best true forever friends, and they are growing up in the 90s amidst girl power and, you know, 10-piece sweetie mix-ups. And then one day, Billy goes missing, and not long after that, her body is found, and Thea decides that she is the only one who's properly qualified to find out what happened to Billy. So what if thrillers are your favourite genre, but you have some loved ones that you need to indoctrinate, introduce to the genre? In that case, I have 3 books that I think would be absolutely perfect for you, because one way that I have found almost foolproof to encourage people into reading a new genre or into, you know, reading in general is to say, but there's a TV show that you can watch after you read it. So the first of the 3 books that I have is The Sinner by Petra Hammerschaft. This one is about Cora, who one day on a crowded beach when she is enjoying a day out with her husband and her very small child, she walks up to an apparent stranger and stabs him to death. She then admits that she's guilty and is quite happy to sign her life away, but the lead detective in the case thinks that there's more to it and is desperate to find the reason behind this apparently random act. And the second one that I have got is Apple Tree Yard by Louise Doughty. This one is a little less stabby and thrilling and a little more twisted. This is about Yvonne Carmichael, who is an extremely smart lady. She is the head of her scientific field, and she has gone to the Houses of Parliament to present a paper to the committee. When she's there, she meets a pretty mysterious man who she is irresistibly drawn to get to know. For years, she has been absolutely stagnant in her home life, and she's bored and scared, and she doesn't know where to go. But this affair changes her entire life. And the last book that I have is, of course, the very recent smash hit series The Cry by Helen Fitzgerald. This book is about a couple who take their very, very young, weeks-old son from Scotland to Australia to meet their extended family. Before they get to the family house, they park for a minute by the side of the road and their baby disappears, and what ensues is a massive manhunt which absolutely captures public and media attention. But not everything is as it seems. There are definitely other things going on in the background here, and oh baby, this is one of those really satisfying books and TV shows which halfway through tells you the answer and then makes you wonder what the hell is going to happen if anybody else finds out what the real answer is. So all of these could be perfectly gripping, but what do you do for the seasoned thriller lovers in your life? I'ma tell you. You buy them a standalone by an author that they've probably heard of for years and have probably never picked up, and that is The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter. You guys know I'm a devotee of Karen Slaughter. I absolutely love her stuff. It is deeply twisty and psychological. Her characters are so complex, and this one is about a very, very common theme right now, unfortunately, and that is a school shooting. Charlie and Samantha grew up in a very small town many, many years ago where a bad thing happened to their family. Now, years and years and years later, they have joined essentially the family business. Everybody in this family is a lawyer, but their practices are very, very different. Charlie has stayed at home and Samantha has gone and become a corporate lawyer. But when a school shooting happens in their tiny town, Charlie needs Samantha's help to be able to solve the case and also to help their very complicated father, Rusty, whose legal agency has taken the case on. So speaking of things in the genre which are very popular at the moment, we of course have the missing child abduction storyline. If you are buying a thriller book for a seasoned thriller lover, they've probably read this trope to death and are sick of it. So I'm going to recommend to you a book which absolutely turns it on its head. This is of course Burnt Paper Sky by Gillian Macmillan. This is about Rachel, who turned her back on her young son for literally a moment and he was gone. This is one of those ones where you can audibly hear the clock ticking in the background and fear just permeates every single page. This one is a trope buster. And finally, for the thrillers, there are of course certain books out there in the thriller sphere that are touchstone books. Recent smash hits like The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn, things that have been made into big blockbusters like Room by Emma Donoghue or Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. But what I find is that people who love those big smash hit blockbuster thrillers never ever look into an author's backlist. And so my last thriller is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. Everybody goes for Gone Girl, everybody knows it, and of course Sharp Objects has just had a TV show adapted from it. But guys, Dark Places has a film that we can just entirely ignore because nothing is as good as the experience of reading this book. This one is about Libby Day, and she is the sole survivor of the Kinnicky Farmhouse massacre. And the fact that I can remember years after reading this book what the farmhouse is called shows you how well it implanted itself in my brain. Libby was a very small girl when she literally watched the rest of her family be chopped up by an axe. She disappeared into the snow, lost a few toes for her troubles, but she survived, and she has been living for years and years into adulthood on the donations from the kind people who heard about this lost little girl. But she has burned through the money, and she as an adult is not capable of holding down a normal job. She then accepts an invitation from a convention of murder geeks, true crime lovers who want to solve the unsolvable, to do an interview about what has happened in her past for money. And she discovers that what she thought happened that night is very different from what other people think happened that night. And now we move on to the wonderful world of the mystery. I have two sort of subcategories in here. First, I'm going to talk about standalone mystery books that I absolutely love, and second, I'm going to talk about the first books in some mystery series that you might want to get for loved ones in your life who like a longer commitment. Another author that I don't think anybody explores the backlist of nearly enough is Liane Moriarty. Of course, Liane Moriarty is best known for Big Little Lies, but that is absolutely only the tip of her powers. I would suggest that you start with Truly Madly Guilty. This is the story of Clementine and Erica. They were childhood best friends who were thrown together more by circumstance and their parents than by their own choice. And now, as adults, they have very much grown apart. Clementine is a very well-renowned cellist with a small family and a very busy life. Erica is a woman who has an orderly, quiet household with her husband. There's no children and there's nothing out of place. They kind of stay in touch more because of habit and expectation than because they want to, and then one day they go with another couple to a barbecue and their lives are changed forever. Next, if you're looking for something unusual for the mystery lover in your life who has read everything, this is a find that I don't think they'll have heard of. This is the Red House Mystery by A.A. Milne. Yes, the person who also wrote the Tales of Winnie the Pooh. This is a book that was published long before Tigger was even a glimmer in A.A. Milne's eye, and I don't think anything can properly sell it to you as much as the back can. So it says, Milne's only detective story where secret passages, uninvited guests, a sinister valley and a puzzling murder lay the foundations for a classic crime caper. It's hilarious, it's quirky, it's sinister, it's nasty, and it's also really reminiscent of things like Agatha Christie. Speaking of Agatha Christie, you guys know that I think that everyone should read Poirot and Miss Marple, and if you're looking for a first book to gift anybody, I always suggest just the first ones in chronological order. So that is respectively The Mysterious Affair at Styles and The Murder in the Vicarage. But people seem to forget that Agatha Christie also has a ton of standalone mysteries. The first of my two favourite standalone Agatha Christie's is of course the Sitterford mystery. This is set on Dartmoor in a very remote little house in a very stormy night where they are having a dark seance, and the people at the seance get a message from the spirits which spells out Captain Trevelyan dead, murder. The only way to ascertain whether this is a thing that's going to happen or has happened is to locate Captain Trevelyan, but his house is 6 miles away in the dark. And the second one is the slightly tongue-in-cheek why didn't they ask Evans. So Bobby Jones, who is a bit of a lad, is playing a round of golf and he clips his ball over a cliff and goes to try and see if he can find it. He doesn't find his ball, but he does find a crumpled and dying man who with his last breath says, why didn't they ask Evans? Bobby and his very trendy companion Frankie are haunted by the man's last words and they go on a journey to find out what they mean. Nothing good was ever going to come of that, was it? Now, for those of you who would like to gift something which might last a little bit longer for the mystery lovers in your life, I have a few series that are both light and heavy commitments. Starting out with my lightest of light commitments, this is The Dry by Jane Harper, and this is the first book in the Aaron Falk series, which there are 2 books of at the moment. It's only just started, that's a very small commitment. Aaron Falk is a policeman, but he is not the kind of policeman we're used to. He's not a murder detective, he's a fraud investigator. He doesn't get involved with the dead bodies, but when he goes home for the tragic funeral of one of his childhood friends and the rest of that friend's family, he discovers that there might be a mystery that he could help with. He reluctantly gets dragged into the web of this murder-suicide and starts to uncover some really horrendous things that are not what he expected. Next, one that might be appropriate for the people in your lives who like mysteries with investigators but they don't want to go down the crime route. Because guys, I can understand why you're resistant to the crime route, because I am also resistant now these days, yes. So this one is about a private investigator in the true tradition of Raymond Chandler, and just great. This, of course, is the Cormoran Strike series by Robert Galbraith, which starts with the first book, The Cuckoos Calling. Cormoran Strike is an ex-military detective. He has retired from the military now because he was injured in an attack with a roadside bomb, and he is unable to give up the life of poking his nose where it doesn't belong. So he has started up his own private investigation agency, and one day a temp called Robin Ellicott turns up to be his receptionist, and their relationship happens just right at the start of Stripe being engaged on the case of his life. The suicide question mark of Lula Landry, a world famous supermodel. Speaking of Raymond Chandler, if you know anybody who really loves the noir private detective thing, who is a Casablanca lover, who likes a little bit of the old Hollywood glitz and glamour, I have a series that is perfect for you that I hear nobody talking about ever. This is A Drink Before the War, which is the first book in the Kenzie and Gennaro series by Dennis Lehane. Yes, the same Dennis Lehane who wrote my beloved Shutter Island. Patrick Kenzie and Angela Gennaro are two very street tough private investigators who work out of an old church belfry in the Dorchester area of Boston. They know the streets better than a lot of detectives know the streets, and they're engaged on a case by a politician who would like them to do something which seems fairly easy at first. They need to track down a woman called Jenna who has allegedly stolen some very sensitive State House documents that the politician wants back. But it turns out that finding Jenna is the easy part and stopping people from killing them is the hard part. Last but not least, when it comes to mystery series, I have an author who has two very popular series on the go right now, and that is Anne Cleeves. Both of these series have been made into separate TV shows, so we have Shetland and then we have Vera. The first series follows Detective Jimmy Perez on the small island of Shetland, where the police station is tiny, and so in general terms are the cares of the people who live there. Then one day the body of teenager Catherine Ross is found on the beach in Shetland, with her eyes being slowly picked out by birds. So this one is about a little group of three women, none of whom are telling the truth. They are the body of an environmental study which is happening in the North Pennines, and they all have their own reasons for being there. But when Rachel, the team leader, gets to the cottage that they're staying in, she finds the body of Bella, one of her old friends. Enter Vera. And Vera is a character all in her own right. Both of these series are ongoing. There is 6 books in the Vera series and there are 8 books in the Shetland series, and as I say, both of them are a TV show that your loved ones can check out after binging on the entirety of both of these. And finally, as the winter lighting really sets in, we have the last books in this part of my Christmas gift guide, and that is, of course, the horror section. Because where would any Stabby Death Mayhem video be without some horror? I very recently did a video all about where to start with horror and where to go in the genre if you've tried some things and would like to get into something different, so I will link that above. However, if you're a hardcore horror lover but you are wanting to gift the gift of horror-y nasty books to someone who's a little bit more squeamish, I have the perfect book for you because it's a horror funny. This is A Dirty Job by Christopher Moore, and it is the first in the Grim Reaper series, and it's just, it's amazing. It's about a guy who is in a hospital, his wife is giving birth, he's terrified because he is not entirely sure that he's going to know what end of the baby is the right end to hold up in the first place, and then he walks into his wife's room and sees a guy standing in golf clothes next to his wife's bed, who looks at him and says, "You shouldn't be able to see me." Everything seems fine. They travel home, and then they discover that ravens are nesting on their house all of a sudden, and they wake up each morning with a new name freshly written in a pad of paper by the bed that neither of them recognises, but who dies very soon afterwards. That's right, Charlie Asher has been chosen to become the new Death, whether he likes it or not. And finally, the last book in this category and also the last book in this section of my gift guide is one that plays with that concept of death, which I find draws a lot of people into the horror genre. This is Scythe by Neil Shusterman, and this is set in a futuristic world where we have managed to extend human life by a freaking lot, by a whole lot, you guys. But because of that, too many people now exist on Earth and Earth can't handle the burden, and so some people in the community are chosen to be scythes, and they get to pick who ultimately dies and will not come back. Neither Citra or Rowan want this responsibility, really. This is horror light in one way, in that it is technically a YA book, but I think it very much translates for an adult audience. Also, it's great for anybody who is a fan of Lockwood & Co, like me, or who likes death in the Terry Pratchett Discworld series. So that's it for part 1 of this little Christmas Elves Christmas gift guide. I hope you have enjoyed it. I've destroyed my entire house to film it. Please let me know in the comments if there are any books not on this list that you're planning to buy for your loved ones, or if there are any books on this list that you're maybe eyeing for yourself. And I will be back very shortly with part 2 of my Christmas gift guide, which is going to be, like I said, everything else and bookish ephemera. And tomorrow, my Christmas decorations are going up. So part 2 of this gift guide is going to be very frickin' festive indeed. Bye! Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, why don't you want to be Christmassy and festive with me? Why is nobody as Christmas and festive as me in this house? Grinch, Scrooge, McFits. Just kidding, I love him anyway. He's totally getting presents. It's cool.